Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. There's even a brand new Brigadier General tier where you can get a shout out on a Commander's Quarters episode that's dedicated to you. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. Today's episode comes to you courtesy of Aaron, who's been supporting this channel as a Golden Pig tier patron. I truly couldn't do this without the support from amazing patrons like Aaron, so again, Aaron, thank you so much. And for the personalized deck tag, Aaron chose an artist tribal deck around the arts of Magali. She is an incredible artist that has done a ton of amazing pieces for Magic the Gathering. Even if you've only played a few games of Commander, chances are pretty likely that you've already seen some of her pieces. So when selecting a commander for this artist tribal deck, I actually had a few options for commanders that she's done the artwork on. Obviously, with an artist tribal deck like this one, the more colors that you have access to, the better, and luckily for me, there are a couple of options to pick from for commanders that have 3 colors. And the commander that really stood out to me as the best option for her artist tribal deck was Narset Enlightened Master. Obviously, this is an incredible piece of artwork, and of course, an incredibly powerful commander as well. Narset Enlightened Master is a 3/2 human monk with first strike and hexproof that costs 3 blue, red, white. She has, whenever she attacks, exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast non-creature cards exiled with Narset this turn without paying their mana costs. So Narset can be a value engine for you. Whenever she attacks, you get to cast stuff for free. That amount of value can really overwhelm opponents, and Narset herself is pretty hard to deal with, having both first strike and hexproof. Regardless, now let's jump into the other pieces from Magali that we're going to be utilizing in this deck. And actually, one more thing really quick, the budget restriction imposed on this deck is that every single card in this deck is less than $1 outside of the commander. And now with all that said, let's jump into it. First up, we've got Wildfire Eternal, and let's just call this one Narset Jr. Okay, in a way. It's got Afflict 4, and whenever it attacks and isn't blocked, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your hand without paying its mana cost. So this is yet another way to cast a spell for free, but instead of it being on top of our library and any non-creature spell, it's going to be instants and sorceries from our hand. So in a way like Narset, this is a good way for us to save some mana for other things. Now, I tried to stay as true to the artist as I could for this deck while still making it a functioning deck, so there are mana rocks that are not from this artist. So very quickly, we're running a lot of efficient mana rocks that each can cost 2 and tap for 1, like Azorius Signet, Boros Signet, Izzet Signet, Everflowing Chalice, Ebony Fly, Liquid Metal Torque, Prismatic Lens, Marble Diamond, Sky Diamond, and Fire Diamond. Again, when it comes to mana rocks, like I always say, I want at least half the amount of mana back that I put into it. Regardless, now let's move on to some more value-based cards from our artists with Glacian, Power Stone Engineer, Seeker of Insight, and Stromkirk Occultist. Glacian has tap, X untapped artifacts you control. The top X cards of your library, put one of those cards in your hand and the rest in your graveyard. And then Seeker of Insight has tap, draw a card, then discard a card, activate its ability only if you've cast a non-creature spell this turn. Next up, the Occultist has Trample, and whenever it deals common damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card, and it's got Madness for 1 and a red. Next up, we've got City Watch Sphinx, which can help us with some card selection, because when it dies, we surveil too. And then Giant Ballard can help us out in a lot of ways. Her +1 is add red, red, red. Spend this mana only to cast instant or sorcery spells. Her other +1 is discard up to 3 cards, then draw that many cards, and her ultimate is a -8. It's an emblem that lets us cast instant sorcery spells from our graveyard. So yeah, Giant can help us out a lot in a game, especially if we can get that emblem out. Next up, we've got some straightforward draw spells with Huddle Up, Behold the Multiverse, and Prying Eyes. Huddle Up has Assist, and it says 2 target players each draw a card. Behold the Multiverse has Foretell for 1 in a blue, and it says Scry 2, then draw 2. And Prying Eyes lets us draw 4, then discard 2. Next up, we've got Piece of the Puzzle, which lets us get 2 instant and/or sorcery cards out of the top 5 cards of our library into our hand. And then there's Pour Over the Pages, which lets us draw 3, then untap 2 lands and discard a card. And then Flood of Recollection can actually help us get a card back by returning an instant or sorcery from our graveyard to our hand. But out of all the cards in this deck, to me, there is one that stands above the rest, and that's going to be the Golden Pig of this deck. And the Golden Pig of this deck is Patient Rebuilding. Now, Patient Rebuilding can be a very good card in the right situation. It's an enchantment for 3 blue, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard, then you draw a card for each land card put into that graveyard this way. So this has the opportunity to actually draw us a good amount of cards throughout the game, especially against specific decks. But the main reason that I actually picked this card as the Golden Pig of this deck is, well, it's amazing art. I felt like it was only right for an artist tribal deck like this one to have the Golden Pig be my favorite piece of art from the entire deck. And yeah, this art just blows me away, and it is absolutely beautiful. And that's what makes this card the Golden Pig. But now let's move on to some cards that can help protect our things and help throw a wrench into our opponent's plans. First up, there's Alsate of Life's Bounty, a 1/1 with lifelink that has pay 1, sacrifice it, target creature and enchantment you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So this can actually be a good way to protect our commander or to get her through. And then Dive Down can also protect a creature that we control, giving it +0/+3 and Hexproof until end of turn. Next up, there's Rebecca, which has artifacts you control protection from each converted mana cost among artifacts you control. And then we've got some planeswalkers that can help us out with Teo and Kasmina. Teo starts off at 5 loyalty, and he has You have Hexproof, and his -2 is create a 0/3 white wall creature token with Defender. And then Kasmina, Enigmatic Mentor, has 5 loyalty, and she has spells your opponents cast that target a creature or planeswalker you control cost 2 more to cast. On top of that, her -2 is create a 2/2 blue wizard creature token, draw a card, then discard a card. And of course, another way for us to protect ourselves and our things is just by countering that spell with Negate, which can counter target non-creature spell. We can also protect our entire board with Make a Stand, which says creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. Or, we can just take one of our opponent's most threatening things with Order of Succession. It says choose left or right, starting with you and proceeding in the chosen direction. Each player chooses a creature controlled by the next player in that direction. Each player gains control of the creature he or she chooses. With this one, though, you might want to be a little bit careful because, again, Narset is a pretty big deal. Though Narset does have hexproof, this does not specify that it targets a creature, so that player could take Narset. That being said, there might be something more powerful than Narset out there, so have fun taking that. And if the player that's taking your card is running a creature-based strategy, well, then Narset really might not do all that much for them. Regardless, some other cards that can help out are Healing Grace, Active Heroism, and Knight's Pledge. Healing Grace says prevent the next 3 damage to be dealt to any target this turn by a source of your choice, and you gain 3 life. So this can actually be a surprising way to protect our commander in combat when she needs it. Another way to do that is with Active Heroism, which says untap target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn and can block initial creature this turn. And this can also be a surprising way for us to block as well. And then Knight's Pledge is just a straight up aura that gives +2/+2. Next up, we can actually use imaginary threats to force an opponent to attack into an unfortunate situation for them. And if we don't want to do that, well, we can just cycle this away for 2. And if a creature does attack us or is blocking one of our creatures, we can ping it for 2 with Slash of Talons. Or we can gain control of a creature with power 3 or less with Exert Influence. Well, as long as we use each of our colors to cast it. Next up, there's Kind Contemplation, which can take advantage of all of the non-creature spells that we're casting. Because whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we can pay 1 to tap down a creature, and it doesn't untap target controller's next untapped step. Or we can utilize our mana with Byforce, which is an X spell that's going to destroy X target artifacts. And speaking of destroying artifacts, there's Invoke the Divine, which is going to destroy target artifact or enchantment, and we gain 4 life. Next up, we've got Dulcet Sirens, which has pay a blue and tap, target creature attacks target opponent this turn if able. So if another player has a really powerful creature in play, well, we're going to send it at someone else. And then Nil's Discipline Enforcer says at the beginning of your end step, for each player, put a +1 counter on up to 1 target creature that player controls. Each creature with 1 or more counters on it can attack you or planeswalkers you control unless its controller pays X for X the number of counters on that creature. So this can be a great way to incentivize opponents to go elsewhere with their creatures. Or, we can just bounce a threatening creature with Academy Journey Mage, which has, when it enters the battlefield, bounce target creature back to its owner's hand. We can also utilize Nahiri's Binding to actually bind a creature or planeswalker, making it so that it can't attack or block and its activated abilities can't be activated. Or we can temporarily get rid of that with Cast Out, which is going to exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. And then we can actually exile a lot of creatures at once with Hixus. Hixus has flash, and it says whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, if Hixus Prison Warded entered the battlefield this turn, exile that creature until Hixus leaves the battlefield. So if a player swings big at us with their army, well, we can basically make them lose it. And speaking of armies, Let's talk about some ways to make tokens, and we'll start off with some cards like Identity Thief and Linval the Preserver. Identity Thief is a 0/3 shapeshifter that has, whenever it attacks, you may exile another target non-token creature. If you do, Identity Thief becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn. Return the exile card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So Identity Thief can attack and become a copy of one of the biggest creatures out there. And we can also utilize it to abuse ETBs of other creatures. For example, Linval the Preserver is a 5/5 angel with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, if an opponent has more life than us, we gain 5 life. On top of that, when it enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more creatures than us, we get a 3/3 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Now, Magali actually has a few tokens that she's done artwork on, and that includes angel tokens, soldier tokens, and construct tokens. So I'm also going to be utilizing cards that can actually make these tokens, though the artist for the card that makes the token isn't the one that is being featured in this episode. That being said, when the actual card is played that makes the token, you of course are going to go get one of these amazing tokens. So next up, we actually do have one from our artist with Urbis Protector. It's a 1/1 human cleric that, when in ETBs, we get a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. Some other ways for us to make those flying angel tokens, though, come with Seraphic Greatsword and Invocation of Saint Traft. Seraphic Greatsword is going to give equipped creature +2/+2, and whenever it attacks the player that has the most life or tied for the most life, we get a 4/4 angel. And that 4/4 angel is tapped and attacking that player. And then Invocation of Saint Traft is somewhat similar, but it's an aura that has Enchant Creature. Enchant Creature has, whenever this creature attacks, put a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, exile that token at end of combat. We even have a board wipe that can actually get us an angel as well with Descend Upon the Sinful. It's going to exile all creatures, and if we've got Delirium, we get that 4/4 angel with flying. Next up, Decree of Justice can actually be pretty flexible and get us one of 2 tokens. It's a sorcery for X/2 white, and it says create X 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying. It also has cycling for 2 and a white, and when we cycle it, we can pay X, and if we do, we get X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. And then next up, Nomad's Assembly is going to give us a soldier for each creature that we control, and on top of that, it's got rebound, so we get to do it again. And then we've got Reverent Hoplite, Evangel of Heliod, and Captain of the Watch, which can get us even more tokens. Both Reverent Hoplite and Evangel of Heliod are going to get us soldiers equal to our devotion to white. And then when Captain of the Watch ETBs, we're going to get 3/1/1 white soldier creature tokens, and it also is going to give other soldier creatures we have +1/+1 and vigilance. But we're not quite done with our soldiers just yet, so let's move on to Lena, Selfless Champion. When Lena comes into play, we're going to get a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each non-token creature we control, and on top of that, when we sacrifice it, creatures we control with power less than Lena's power gain indestructible until end of turn. And then with Call the Coppercoats, our opponents can actually help us get even more soldiers. It has Strive, choose any number of target opponents, create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of creatures those opponents control. And our final soldier spell is Martial Coup, which says create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So if we need to wipe the board and make a lot of tokens, we can. And speaking of making a lot of tokens, let's talk about Metallurgic Summonings. It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create an XX colors construct artifact creature token, where X of that spell's mana value. On top of that, by paying 3 blue, we can exile it to return all instant and sorcery cards from our graveyard to our hand, activate only if we've got 6 or more artifacts. And to help all these tokens out, we've got some more cards from our artist with Sarah's Guardian and Weaponize the Monsters. Sarah's Guardian is a 5/5 flying angel with vigilance that says other creatures you control have vigilance. And if attacking doesn't work, well, we can just chuck our tokens at our opponents with Weaponize the Monsters. By paying 2, we can sacrifice a creature, and Weaponize the Monsters deals 2 damage to any target. But now that we've gone through every single non-land card in this deck, let's move on to the price. Again, like I mentioned before, every single card in this deck outside of the Commander, which is just outside of that $1 budget, is less than $1. So the estimated cost for this deck is incredibly budget at $24.82. Keep in mind that that price does include basic lands at 10 cents a piece. And also keep in mind that that doesn't include heavily played and damaged cards from TCG players, so your price can be even lower. Though make sure you keep in mind that this estimated price does not include shipping, which might vary depending on where you live. And with that, this show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.